I've been thinking a lot about Lugia being a part of the new Pokemon movie because there's so much potential with what could happen. Is it going to be like Pokemon I Choose You the movie, except about Ash's Johto adventure? That seems like a realistic possibility. Is it going to be a retelling of Pokemon 2000? Because with the new art direction and after the last Pokemon movie, anything seems possible. Or is it just going to be a new Pokemon movie? Maybe Lugia is even downplayed for a new protagonist or a new storyline. Who even knows at this point? But that's what has me excited. Now, another thing that has me interested is what Korokoro is saying about Lugia. I've already talked about this before, but really quickly, there's a lot coming up with Lugia. Korokoro says, hey, we got a big feature on Lugia next month, and also to keep your eye out on potential stuff going on with Lugia. Now, this immediately alerted me to something that has happened in the past, and that is even with previous movies. Mewtwo. We had Mewtwo's Mega form being shown before we even knew what Mega Evolution was. We were just like, okay, cool, new form, what could this mean? Is this going to be a part of like the actual games? What does this mean for 6th generation? So it has given us a little bit of a glimpse into the future as for new features and mechanics, and that has me really excited, but what could it be? I think that that's the biggest thing I'm thinking about right now, is what could Lugia bring to the Nintendo Switch Pokemon game that is going to blow it out of the water? Unfortunately, Pokemon has just been swamped with new features lately that kind of change things up a little too much. So if we get another change in the Nintendo Switch version that is executed poorly, Pokemon fans aren't going to be happy. People are already very split about the introduction of Z moves right after Mega Evolution, as well as just everything being added on and stacked on top of each other. Not only did we get Mega Evolution, but we also got Primal Reversion and whatever's going on with Rayquaza. Not only did we get Z Power, but now we have like this Ultra form for Necrozma that is activated by Z Power, and then some other changes that can happen as well. And not only that, but it does feel like both of these are incomplete. Mega Evolution, there could always be more Mega Pokemon, that'd be pretty cool. With Z moves, it feels like the exclusive Z moves don't really have a lot of Pokemon supporting them, even though Pokemon Company went out of their way to promote something like Mimikyu, Kommo-o, but really, what we saw in the promotions was it. There was nothing new to discover with exclusive Pokemon that have access to Z Crystals and no new Mega Evolution. So, what feature could actually be brought into the Nintendo Switch Pokemon game that wouldn't be disruptive and potentially already exists in Pokemon? Because if the feature's already been shown off once, then, you know, bringing it back could be more hype than actually, now we have to put up with a new feature. Oh wait, we already have that. Shadow Pokemon in XD Gale of Darkness and Pokemon Coliseum. Even though these are not main series Pokemon games, they still exist in the Pokemon lore and they are widely accepted by fans, and also a lot of people have been wanting to see something similar to them returning for quite some time now. Also, I want to hear what you guys have to say because this is a pretty crazy discussion that has been going on for a very long time. Will Shadow Pokemon ever come back? Will it actually be a part of the core series Pokemon game? If there is a new feature to be implemented in the Nintendo Switch, because it seems likely, will it be Shadow Pokemon? Will it be something else? What do you think they could add in that won't be as crazy and game-breaking or just potentially disruptive as Mega Evolution and Z moves and stuff? And do you think that what we're seeing with these trends, that, you know, Mewtwo introduced a new feature for the movie, can Lugia introduce a new feature for the Nintendo Switch? With Shadow Pokemon being an inspiration behind Nuclear Pokemon in Pokemon Uranium version, a fan game that was widely loved because it paid tribute. It seems like it respected more of the old features in Pokemon instead of trying to make something new, modern, and cool and introduce all these features and get way too crazy with the game. It respected some of the foundation that has been laid out in Pokemon before, and because of that, fans really liked it. So it seems like a better direction to go with Nintendo Switch. That's sometimes going back to your roots and then expanding on that instead of just going for, you know, extravagance for extravagance's sake and making things more complicated than they need to be. That does seem like one potential problem that we could find on Nintendo Switch. We have a new console, we have all these new fancy things going on, so why not try to make it as crazy as possible? But since we already are familiar with Shadow Pokemon and Purification, there's a lot of ways that this could go really well. And there's even a really good chance that it won't be disruptive to the actual competitive scene or any of the hard post-game for the games. Because Shadow Pokemon, you can't really do much with them until they are purified, and then you have access to Pokemon from there. So the trainer of Shadow Pokemon cannot do any of the following until it's purified. Level up, evolve it, use a rare candy, change the order of its moves, delete its moves, give it a nickname, trade it, participate in battle mode with it. So even if we have this new feature, it'll effectively be storyline only, but a really cool part of the story, and then potentially give it some benefits that will make it work later on in the game. And I can easily see it being a hindrance if shadow Pokemon aren't useful outside of the story. It's like, oh, so I have to go through all of this to purify Pokemon, and then it doesn't really give me anything. So this is where I feel that we can just kind of take multiple features from Pokemon and tie them all together. What if shadow Pokemon, once you purify them, it gives you free hyper training, so they come out with maxed IVs, or it lets you have like more control over how that Pokemon could be trained. Therefore, you could either be a purifier or you could be a breeder. You can look out and look for rare Pokemon purify, and then they're almost competitively ready just like that after you go through, you know, purifying them and stuff like that, as opposed to being a breeder, in which case you just kind of get all of your egg moves, you get all of like your IVs and your breeding setup going, and then you can just start pumping out competitive Pokemon. And maybe purifying also already having the Pokemon at level 50 or something like that. Maybe in the post game, all the Pokemon that get purified, they get like increased level experience or something like that. That way there is some kind of advantage to training them competitively instead of only having to go the breeder route. Now, I could also see this being a problem because one issue I've had with breeding is that once you get set up, it's kind of almost too easy. I know a lot of people are going to get upset about me saying breeding and too easy in the same idea, or in the same thought at least. But hear me out, because once you get a Beast Ball, it's like, oh, now you can infinitely breed down that Beast Ball. So the initial act of catching a Beast Ball means absolutely nothing, especially if you get a group of trainers or you scale it up to the millions of players that end up getting Pokemon. Same with egg moves. The egg moves, it's like, cool, you worked really hard for that egg move, but then once that Pokemon gets out and starts breeding, it's like one person digests all of the work, goes through the immense amount of work that it takes to get that breeding set up, and then everything they do becomes devalued after that once the Pokemon spread out or once breeding becomes more mainstreamed and stuff. So I see that being a problem that devalues breeding. Then maybe purified Pokemon, even after being purified, can be seen as like an alternative form or something, or have different stats in a moveset that can't be obtained through breeding, but at the same time, you're losing out on the advantages that getting the egg moves or the IVs or stuff that breeding could provide. Or maybe just kind of leave it to legendary Pokemon only. I was thinking about Shadow Mewtwo from Pokemon Tournament DX, and while I didn't play through the story of Pokemon Tournament DX, I'm not like fully understanding of like the synergy stones and like the shadow stone and stuff like that. A feature like that could still work in a new Pokemon game that's a core series game. Then maybe the legendary Pokemon, they get corrupted on their own power, or maybe there is some kind of shadow stone or shadow power just kind of creeping through the whole area. So the only way you can get legendary Pokemon is by catching them and then purifying them that way. Therefore, there's at least a little bit extra added on, and then we still get all of our legendaries, kind of like how we have with the Ultra Warp Ride and Hoopa's Rings and Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. So I feel like this could integrate well in a meaningful way, and then also be something that fans are familiar with and have been wanting for a while. Because like, why? Yeah, Mega Evolution, it does add power. Z moves, it does add power. So maybe there will need to be some kind of power dynamic or advantage to Shadow Pokemon being purified. That way their existence isn't just story driven, or it's like, oh, now what do I do with these things? So because of that, it will need to take a next little bit of a step up. But now I want to take a step back and just kind of scale everything up, because when you look at Pokemon XD and you look at Pokemon Coliseum, there is a really good foundation for a core series game on a console version of Pokemon, and Nintendo Switch could work really well for that. So when you look at like Pokemon XD or Coliseum, unfortunately it feels like a stage. It doesn't feel like you're playing in an open world. You open up these games to an open world and you make it feel like a core Pokemon game, and you have a winning combination right there. But really, a lot of the designs and a lot of the intentions of these games are a lot different than a core series Pokemon game. Therefore, they're going to behave differently like that. But when you look at it, it's effectively like a stage. You know, you're in one area, you have very limited movement, you have very limited exploration. It's effectively like a track that just tries to guide you to an important part that drives along the storyline. And unfortunately, there's really no capturing wild Pokemon. I know it's possible in Pokemon XD with very limited locations, but I mean, for the most part, when you just drive from area to area, you're skipping over the Pokemon region, you're skipping over the world, you're skipping over Pokemon that could be in the wild, grassy areas, the actual route, the exploration, the alternative paths, everything like that just could exist as what we see in these games, but then just expanding. That the region has a lot of regional feel to it. It seems like something can be accomplished here like a core series Pokemon game, and then just scale it like Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Now, I'm not saying that we need to make, you know, Breath of the Wild meets Pokemon on like their open world concept to create a winning combination for a Pokemon game. When you look at the map of the region for XD Gale of Darkness Coliseum, and you look at the map for Breath of the Wild, it feels like you could effectively do the same thing and then build it like a Pokemon game and have a really well-explored area, maybe even having a massive region or multiple regions inside the map that you can then explore and develop. I feel that that could be a really good direction to take it that would still fit in with a Pokemon game, makes sense on the Switch, makes sense as Coliseum, and then everything scales up and works out really well. Throw in some Shadow Pokemon and you're good to go. And then the weird thing about describing these games is that it's like saying, hey, it's like a Pokemon Core Series game, except no routes, no catching wild Pokemon, no gyms, but a lot of the rest of the story kind of unfolds the same way. It's like if you only made the game story-driven, it's like you go to the base, you go to all the like key areas that you need to go to for either your key items or your discovery or just learning about the story, and then figuring out who the bad guy is to take over. That's how these games play out. So you fill that in with core series stuff, and now we have a functioning Pokemon game on the Switch that could work out really well. Because that was like one of the really interesting things about Coliseum, that as I mentioned earlier, it was a different design idea. That it doesn't seem like they want to make a true core Pokemon game on a console just yet, because at that time, you know, Game Freak, they were 100% set saying, hey, core series Pokemon games will not be on console because it's about portability. It's about interacting with others. How do you do that? Well, you talk about your adventure, which you can kind of do about XD Gale Darkness Coliseum, but you catch Pokemon. You catch, train, battle, trade, and you do all these Pokemon trainer things, but they took those features out of the console just to kind of make it cemented as a console game. But now with the Nintendo Switch, it's a portable console. It's both, which is why Game Freak is okay with developing a core series game on the Nintendo Switch, because you undock it, you take it to a friend's house, and then you play Pokemon. You go outside, you find someone else with a Switch, and you play Pokemon. So nothing is lost from the Game Boy, from the 3DS, from all of these other handheld features, even though it is technically a console, it's a handheld console. So that's why we could just see, you know, Coliseum with handheld things implemented, and then you're good to go. And in another like weird way of describing the game, it feels like, you know, it feels exactly like Pokemon Stadium in the way that they didn't want to make it exactly like Pokemon Stadium. That it's a really cool Pokemon Stadium Battle Arena game with 3D models in a time where 3D models didn't exist in Pokemon, and it looked really good because GameCube meets Pokemon at that time. Oh my god, those models look great for Pokemon. So that was kind of the idea behind it. It almost felt like the Gym Leader Castle, except you actually got to walk around inside and then participate in the story. But other than that, most of the game, a vast majority of the game, is just like running up to a trainer, battling them, maybe snagging a shadow Pokemon, and then moving on until the game is beaten. So it was kind of like 50-50. It was 50-50 the battle simulator, but also 50-50 kind of a story, a bit more than Pokemon Stadium. Hey, we're not exactly like Pokemon Stadium. So I think taking all that into consideration, there could be a lot of inspiration here, and I'm not saying like, oh, Lugia's in the movie, therefore Shadow Lugia makes a return in the movie. But I'm thinking like if we have these new features, Shadow Lugia isn't super unfamiliar. And if we keep with that familiarity, then we can snowball some of these other ideas that could potentially be in Pokemon and then affect a larger scale of the Pokemon world to make a really awesome core Pokemon game. And I think that's it. So hope you guys enjoy the video. Hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.